Hi, I'm Eric Rhodes and welcome to Art School Live. Well, as we know, Eric is traveling, so we have the lunatics running the asylum. I'm 𝗤𝗲𝗃𝗁, and I will be looking after you this week here in the hot seat. But I'm not really in the hot seat because I don't have to do much. The people who are going to do loads of stuff for us are the artists that we get to invite this week. And today we have an absolute cracker of an artist coming on to share with us some amazing tips. And so let's get her on screen now. Can we welcome in 𝗤𝗲𝗃𝗁? Christine,
Hi, Charlie.
welcome. And what are you going to teach for us today?
I am going to paint a sunset, but this time I'm going to focus on using the palette knife in the sky. It's just such a versatile tool. We can soften edges, add depth, make interesting marks. So that's what we're going to do.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait. So let's get this thing rolling.
All right.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes. Now, here's your host, Eric Rhodes.
Yeah, there we go. Look, we're now back in my studio here. If you don't know who I am, I'm 𝗤𝗲𝗃𝗁. Check out my artwork at 𝗤𝗲𝗃𝗁.com or on Instagram at @𝗤𝗲𝗃𝗁. Or indeed, I've been actually quite involved with Streamline recently, been doing a video. So there's one up on PaintTube. But anyway, that's who I am. But today's not about me. Today is about 𝗤𝗲𝗃𝗁. And if you don't know Christine's work, you should. I have been so impressed by the work that she's been producing over the last few years. I mean, look at these skies. The edge quality is amazing. She's totally filled up the trophy cabinet with awards and accolades. I mean, way too many to mention, Christine. And she's now represented by galleries across the world, across the continent, into the UK, where I'm from. And I'm just thrilled to finally meet face-to-face, semi in real life, Christine, and to see her paint. So welcome again today, Christine. And I'm just going to throw this over to you because we all want to learn.
Okay, awesome. So I've got all of these sunset colors pre-mixed here. I just want to show you my palette knife collection. And it's so funny. I am, kind of obsessed with buying palette knives, but I favor
look like a chef,
this one.
You look like you've got one for every application.
I do, but I hardly use any of them. This is the one I always use, and it's about 1 inch, and it's quite small. So that's the one I'm going to use. But first, before we can use our palette knives, we need lots of paint to move around. So I want to start from scratch, and I'm using a natural bristle filbert, quite big one for the canvas size. This is 11 by 14. And in my workshops, one of the most common things is people don't use enough paint. They just use little dabs. They try to make it stretch. So I like to use baking terms. So I've got, practically half a teaspoon. If you've ever baked, this is about half a teaspoon of paint on here. And I'm just going to start with the light where I want my light. I don't want it at the halfway mark. So I'm going to put it in here. I used to start from dark to light, like the darkest clouds up top. But I found that in relating all of my colors to that dark, my sunset would become quite dark. So lately, I've just been trying something new with starting with the light. So I'm just going to lay that in. And then once we relate all the colors to the light, my sunset seems brighter. So it's just something I've been trying lately. So I've just got these colors pre-mixed. I have this is sort of a cerulean and this orange color mixed together. And I'm just laying this in quite thick.
And can I just clarify, because there's a couple of questions about this. You're working in water mixable oil straight out of the tube.
That's right. Yes. Yes, I am. I find that traditional oils, the smell was just sort of giving me a headache. So I work in water mixable now.
Without any compromise.
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I don't use any medium at all. I just like to lay the paint in thickly. Okay, so I'm going to go into a sort of a darker cloud color here, and just get some interesting cloud shapes in here. We want to think about the clouds up top are usually larger, and the clouds towards the horizon are usually more horizontal, more stretched out. So I'm thinking about that, but yeah, I'm quite thickly just laying in some random shapes. And I kind of like to try to point my clouds to the light. And I'm just sort of making this up as I go. So things will move around, and
you've pre-mixed your colors. Is there
I did.
a strategy on how you pre-mix the colors? I know we're not going to necessarily get into color mixing today. It's more about the knife work, but there's a few questions there saying about how do you pre-mix your colors.
Oh gosh, can I tip the camera to my palette and show you?
Yeah, let's
beautiful sunset colors.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Can you see them?
We can.
Awesome. Yeah, so I started my palette with, I have ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, cad red light, cad yellow light, cad yellow medium, and titanium white, of course. Okay. And then whenever I finish a painting, I kind of save that mud. So I always have a little package of mud, and I always put that out on my palette. It just helps to neutralize your colors, and wherever you need gray, because nature is really gray.
Right.
So I'm just going to get some interesting cloud shapes in here towards the light, towards the horizon. And you're thinking, when you're color mixing, you're thinking it's always warm towards the light, and then it gets cooler as it goes away. So this is what they call the messy stage, but it's actually my favorite part because it's just so free. I'm not worried about much. I'll worry about everything later. And then I'd like to cap off the light down here with a low-lying cloud. Okay, and then I'm going to get some sky color out there. So yeah, I don't use any medium. I just sort of wipe out my brush and keep going.
Right. And so you're just blocking in some general shapes of your sunset, shapes, and then we're going to work the edges with your palette knife.
General shapes, and yes, that's right. We're going to make sense of this mess with a palette knife. And always thinking warm to cool. Okay, that's a good start. I feel like I should have chose a larger canvas because I really do go quickly.
Well, it's good for when you're working outside.
That's right. Okay, basic shapes here. So I'm just going in with that knife that I favor, and I'm just sort of pushing and pushing the cloud into the sky, and pulling the sky back into the cloud, and it just creates these carefree marks and sort of marries everything together, softens edges.
Mm-hmm. Are you working from a reference, or is this
No, I'm just sort of going with it. You do have a picture that I'm sort of going off of, but it'll never end up exactly the same anyway. So right. Yeah. Generally nowadays when I paint, I'm using a few different photographs as inspiration, plus, a few different relevant plein air studies. And I just sort of amalgamate all of that into one new. So I'm not really painting anything specific, a specific place or anything. So I am done with I'm not going to use my natural bristle anymore, because if I try, I'm just going to be scratching in or taking paint off. So back to those baking terms, almost like icing a cake. If you ice a cake and then you try to go over a part you've already iced, you're peeling up the icing that was there, you're peeling up the crumbs. So you want to lay thick over top and use a soft synthetic to smooth things out. So see how we've already created these interesting marks? A lot of people on my Instagram say, talk about my brush work, and often it's not my brush doing it at all. It's my palette. So, and then if I feel like a cloud needs a little bit more substance to it, like this one here, I will just go in and put a row of paint on my palette knife with that color and work that in. And you can make the shape as interesting as you want. And then you just sort of decide, do I like it? Should I keep it? Or if you don't like it, you just scrape it out or go over it. And there's just freedom in painting this way.
Mm-hmm. And you're working on a canvas, I'm assuming, so it's got a tooth to it.
I am, yes, yeah. I generally use panels for plein air. I do like the smoothness of panels, but canvas is just easier to come by. I'm in Saskatchewan, so it's very rural. I'm not close to any art store, so I take what I can get. And this is different for me because I've been painting so large lately that these small ones are now intimidating. It's sort of how can I get the vastness of the sky on this small? So let's go into this. Just makes some interesting marks there. And stand back often, look at your design. I'm thinking variety, I'm thinking balance. You know, they say to squint when you paint plein air, squint at your painting too, and check your values. The sky should be pretty much all one value plane. There shouldn't be much value variation there. It's more of, think of it more as color shifts rather than value shifts in the sky. So see how this knife it iced the cake.
Right.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. If you've ever iced a cake, it just smooths things out so beautifully, and then you have little flecks of the dark cloud in there, and it just adds so much atmosphere. And once in a while, if I really like a mark with the scratchy natural bristle, sometimes I'll leave it. So just kind of going around and oops. Okay. Make sure that you're wiping your knife off on a clean paper towel each time, because I just got some of that pasty blue and into this pink. But that's no worries. That's no problem. It's gone. Just like that.
You mentioned earlier about painting larger. Are you the technique and the general process, is that still the same for when you're working on your larger works?
Yes, and for those, sometimes I will pull out a larger palette knife. It's just so funny how just the shape of this seems to suit me. Now, there's so many different ones, and you have to just find one that works for you, the one that you're comfortable with. But I will still use this tiny palette knife on a large canvas. On Instagram, Rich Bowman, he's just amazing, and he uses just a giant knife, probably 3 times this size or more. but he's painting really large paintings with it, but still, I have no idea how he's controlling that. It's just incredible. So he's one to look up if you're interested in using your palette knife some more. So I had some white of the canvas, so I'm just adding in some color over here. Sort of thinking about how I want to shape that cloud in that area. But I like how I'm kind of have everything pointing towards the light in here. Smooth some things out. And you can refine things to whatever degree that you want. I mean, the looseness of this right now might be appealing to some artists.
Mm-hmm.
This size I would generally spend about, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours on. So that gives you an idea. We're trying to do this in 40 minutes, but.
So in that 5 or 6 hours that you're working, how much are you applying, manipulating, and then removing paint? Is it a continual process until you're happy?
Yes. I just keep going until I'm happy. Sometimes I will completely eliminate a cloud that I put in. And then that takes time to repair. Yeah, I just generally keep going until I'm happy. And, you know, sometimes there's just those unintentional marks that make the painting. And I don't hold anything too precious. Like, I don't try to prescribe myself a composition that I have to stick to. I hardly ever do that, because I just want to be free to change my mind and let what happens happen. Okay. And so when I put in, go ahead, Charlie.
No, I was going to say, but having the pre-mixed colors on your palette helps you to go back in and know that you're putting in the same color in the same kind of area.
That's right. Yes. And you know, of course, sometimes I'm combining them to get the right temperature in the right area. So I find, like, you can't be afraid to use a lot of paint. I find I have more control the more paint I have, and I know it's scary, but just give it a shot. It's so much fun. And every time I add some of the local color and then pull the cloud back in and the sky back in, it just creates this depth that wouldn't be there otherwise. So that my clouds aren't cut and pasted on, you know what I mean? And I love softening edges. I love using soft edges. And so this got a little bit away from the light, so I just want to cool it down slightly. So I'm just taking the two. Everything's relative, so you always have to do what's right by what you have on the canvas. Constantly ask yourself, is it darker? Is it cooler? Is it lighter? Is it warmer?
And a lot of these decisions that you're making are based upon a knowledge of how clouds work. And you've obviously studied them and worked from life to understand what's likely to happen in a certain situation.
Right. Like I'm constantly just looking up at the sky, and whenever I head out for a plein air, if the sky is doing something great, like if there's actually clouds that day, that's what I'm going to paint. If not, I find other subjects, but which is good to practice everything. But yes, I'm constantly studying them, and there is so much depth and atmosphere in the sky if you really look. It's not just single cut and pasted clouds. There's layers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I often try and teach my students about perspective drawing because, as we all know, getting objects the right size within a scene is integral to making the painting feel like you have depth. But when it comes to doing perspective drawing for skies, it becomes to a much different level of complexity because you got different baselines for all the different strata.
Right, right. Yes, exactly. Okay, so this isn't quite my lightest light. I'm going to put some punch in there. So I'm just going to grab titanium and a titanium white and a little cad yellow medium. I think I might put some cad yellow light in there too. And so I'm just mixing that right with the knife I'm using, and I want to get a good row of paint on there because I am trying to lay more icing on this cake that already has wet icing. So if you're going wet on wet, you have to make it thicker on top. And I was just checking to make sure that that's going to be the right value to stand out from that, the right value and color. And let's just decide, oh, let's do that again. Let's just decide it lives here. See, I can probably even punch that a little bit more. But let's leave it there for now. And then you can just play with it as much as you want to get it the right shape.
And at this point now, are you just using the palette knife, sort of universally using the palette knife, or would you sometimes go back in with a brush now?
I sometimes go back in with the synthetic.
Right.
Oh, it's so intuitive at this point that it's hard to say why I choose which at what time, but this is a bit green for me, so I think. But yeah, I'd like to call this marrying everything together. Everything at the start, everything was sort of separated, and now everything is going to be married together. Before they hadn't even gone on their first date yet. I just want to punch some light in here and see what happens. I think that makes sense to have some light right above there.
So you lightened it but reduced the warmth.
That's right. Yeah. And so yes, titanium white is cool, right? So it cooled it down a bit because it was a bit too yellow green for my taste. So adding the titanium white cooled it down and brightened it. So right above the light, I have some more depth. Well, next time I come on, I'm going to bring a 16 by 16, I think.
What are you on a 12 by 16 there?
This is an 11 by 14.
11 by 14.
So, let's see if we can have some fun over here. I'm either going to regret or like it. And
Go for it.
either way is okay, because you can
That's right.
always go back.
Fearless painting.
And I find that the more I just play around, just the more interesting it gets. And even if I say, oops, I don't like that, and I change my mind and want to go back to the way it was, you'll never get it back to exactly the way it was. But
Of course.
in doing so, you have created more layers and depth in that area than you ever, like, than you would get otherwise, you know? That's a little light for there. Oh no, my palette's getting messy.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love about your skies is they have a kind of a, I mean, it's the classic lost and found. It's you have areas where your eye will go into and then transition through into another area, and you kind of move around. And I'm sure some of it is a personal journey that I'm going on, and some of it's intentional from you. I think it's a lovely quality. You can spend a lot of time with your paintings.
Oh, that's so nice of you to say. I'm so glad you have that experience with it. My husband says that I paint landscapes that have feeling, whatever that feeling may be. I'm just glad people are experiencing a feeling.
Well, that's what, you know, paintings are, it's communication. And so I think it's a great thing if you're communicating a feeling. That's it's very positive.
So I'm starting not to like this. You know, that's just the thing. You just got to play. So I'm just going into that dark sky color, and I'm going to keep messing with this area until I like it.
And just so you know, you got about 20 minutes, 15, 20
Oh,
minutes.
okay. Oh, I'm doing better than I thought. I thought I was just speeding through this too much. See, that's a bit more dynamic up there. I wasn't liking it before, just having it sky. So. And so I just push and pull until I like what I see. So what if I do some practice runs first and decide where to go? What if we brought this right like that? Oh, see, I like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's the only rules are keeping your values fairly close together, and the warmth towards the light and cool getting away from the light. And you have your larger clouds up here, and then more horizontal stringy clouds down here. Otherwise, just play with it. We had some light peeking through the clouds down here. And of course, I could just play with these areas for a long time, but. So I'm just adding some pink orange. I'm sort of mixing the initial orange color with this pink cloud color. So I'm getting sort of a middle tone between those two colors. And I'm just warming up the bottom of this because it's close to the light. That makes a little bit more sense. And yeah, I'm doing so with my knife because, again, we're icing a cake, so we want thicker on top. There, that's better.
You've got a lot of people on the chat who are getting ready to go and paint. They're like, "This is cool. I need to get my paints out." And you got people
you guys,
itching to get lots of juicy paint going.
Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. And you can't be afraid of using a lot of paint with this because you need to be able to move it around with this knife. You need to lay it on top, so you can't be afraid. And you're just going to get some. I'm giving away all my secrets today, Charlie.
Well, we appreciate it. I mean, that was an interesting point. You're saying you really need lots of paint, especially when you're working on a tooth like canvas.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Your mileage may vary if you're working on a panel, a smoother panel. Yeah. Just experiment.
Okay, great. We got a few questions coming in here. Firstly, quick one. What was the name of the artist that you said used huge knives?
𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗵.
𝗏𝗏𝗍𝗵. Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah, beautiful work.
Amazing. Yeah.
Another question is, do you feel that the water mixable oils handle in the same way as regular oils? Some people were saying they found them a bit more sticky.
Okay, so I have not used traditional oils since I was like 12 or so. So it's hard for me to compare them.
Right.
It's hard for me to remember. I love them. They work really well for me. You don't want to mix water with them. Like
Right.
they say water mixable, but water does not mix with them. You either want to use no medium at all or a solvent specifically made for, those water mixables. Yeah, otherwise I just use them straight up generally. If I'm drawing in a branch or something, I might use a little bit of medium to thin the paint out so I get a nice smooth line. But yeah, otherwise I'm not using any medium at all. I'm just going for it.
And you were saying to me before we got online here that you were painting in acrylic before, and then you moved to water mixable oils, and sure enough, suddenly you've got a lot more edge control.
That's right. Yes, I was much tighter with acrylic. Yeah, so I always wanted to go back to oils. I used oils when I was younger. I just remembered the smell and the headaches that I would get. And then when I saw water mixables, maybe were a bit more mild. I really jumped on those. And they worked out really well for me.
Right. And no cracking problems working this thickly on canvas?
No, I say thick, but once I've gone over it with my knife, it really does. I'm wasting a lot back into my paper towel, to be honest with you. As I move things around and I'm wiping my knife off each time because I don't want to make that mistake like I did with bringing the dark down in here. So I'm wiping my knife off every time. I'm using a lot of paper towel and getting a lot of paint in there off the canvas. So no, I haven't had any problem with cracking or anything like that.
And one last question for now. You said sometimes if you're working a tree across the sky, you might put a little bit of medium in. What medium are you going to? You just going to water?
I use odorless mineral spirits.
Oh, okay.
And there are some solvents made specifically for water mixable, but yeah, I've used those before too, and they work great. They are smelly and quite odorous, but yeah, I use it so little that I just use some odorless mineral spirits for those cases where I need to thin it out a little bit, and that works just fine.
Great. All right. Well, I've interrupted you enough. I'll let you get it back on with it.
Oh no! I love the questions because sometimes I just get so wrapped up into painting that I forget to talk, and so the questions are keeping me talking.
Oh, good. Well, there you go.
There you go.
It's looking good.
I'm just standing back and trying to decide what this painting needs.
Hmm.
You know, like there's a lot of decisions I can make. I can decide to break up this line and make that clear sky in there. Let's try it and see what happens. I could ruin it. Okay, and then actually that's really nice. And then I could maybe decide that the cloud needs some rim light. How are we doing for time?
Yeah, you got at least 10 minutes.
Okay. So I will mix up some titanium white and some yellow. And let's just decide maybe there's some rim light happening in here. So I'm just getting this little row. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Little row of paint on the edge. So I'm not grabbing up a big pile like that, or well, that's not a big pile either, but just this tiny little row of paint. And the knife kind of makes the line not so predictable and more natural. If I was using a brush or a liner, I would get way too tight, and it would look sort of unnatural, sort of contrived and drawn in.
So how much are you thinking as you're doing this, like, oh, well, this cloud is in front of this cloud, and this one is appearing here, and this is like my stacking system of the cloud, so that you know where the light is appearing?
Oh, that's a difficult question to answer. I'm not. I think I paint really quite intuitively, and and then something will happen on the knife, like complete accident. I'm not really controlling it much, and then it looks like that cloud is over top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, great, that works.
Yeah.
So it's just having fun with it and seeing what works. And then when something, you know, it's sort of like those happy accidents, like Bob Ross would say.
Yeah.
And then when something works in a painting, you did this wild thing, you experimented and it works. Well, suddenly in the next painting, it's like, oh, I got to replicate that. And so then you just get really good at doing that one effect. And then something else happens and you get good at doing a new effect. And it just sort of evolves that way. So then it becomes almost second nature.
But it requires the ability to go, yep, that was a good bit and that's a bad bit. And it's the editing process that you're clearly very good at.
Right. And you know what, like when I'm actually painting in the studio, I will sit down a lot and look at it. So, you know, for this entire 40 minutes, I've hardly even taken a step back. But in the studio, the decisions I'm making are a lot more thought out. And, you know.
You mean you don't always watch paint with thousands of people watching you? I mean,
no, not usually, Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah, I usually like to hide. Well, anyway, that's some nice rim light happening. This edge is bothering me a bit. And so that's just what I do. Like if something starts bothering me, it's just like, okay, I'm going to go in and mess that up because it's bugging me. I just wanted to soften that a bit. And this light could use a little bit more punch. So I'm just going to play in here for a bit.
And you're still using the same the same palette knife that you have been using all the way through?
That's right. Yeah, I just love this knife. I love the shape of it. I feel like I have just enough control and just enough lack of control that it gives me the marks I want.
That's a nice way of describing it.
Yeah. I mean, not the most eloquent way, but that's exactly what I want.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing people in the chat saying they use different things, whether it's a credit card or a catalyst wedge. I'd never heard of that. But,
Sure. Yes. Yeah. I bought a catalyst wedge as well, but I've hardly used it.
It's sitting with all of the other palette knives,
I am
lonely in the corner, waiting for their turn.
All those poor things.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
You go back to Old Faithful.
Yes, that's right. Well, I see an interesting shape like this. There's this one. Where is it? Like, I just thought this one would be so interesting to use on trees or something. I'm not sure. And I can tell that I've used it because I didn't clean it off very well. But I don't think I've picked it up for a year. I should experiment more with them.
By the way, I love the sound effect that just happened when you went into the back. You went off camera and there was this like sort of clatter of metal. It makes me think that there was like a huge cupboard full of these lonely palette knives.
Oh,
look at that! You're using it.
Yeah, I am. I'm trying. No fear. You got to experiment, because if you don't experiment, you don't make any discoveries, right?
Right.
So, and I need to tell myself that too, because I do get stuck in the same habits, because once you know something works, you're afraid to try anything new. But
right.
Oh boy, I got
I
got to switch. There, that's fun. So yeah, anyways, so we could let's get some hills back here on the bottom here.
We've probably just got 5 minutes. So
okay, let's get them in quick. So just a little bit darker than that low-lying cloud, and maybe this is where your distant hills are. This is practically the same as that color. I probably would adjust it a bit if I had more time, just so that it's not so same. But there, that sort of closes things off a bit. And then as I get into the landscape, I'm thinking, I'm starting at this blue, and I would slowly get more and more green, slowly more and more yellow. So it's sort of like the prismatic sequence in the landscape, where it starts with red, and then purple, and then blue, and then green.
yeah, it always baffles me that the sky kind of goes the opposite direction, and the land.
That's right. Yeah, it does seem so.
Yeah, look at this. Now we're getting the darks in. You see the lightness of the sky, and the clouds take off.
Right. I had to switch to my natural bristle filbert, because it was not getting enough paint on there for my liking. Right. And again, I use the thick paint in the bottom, just like the sky, and then I make sense of it with the palette knife. I find where I want to put my shrubs or 𝗄𝗶𝗁𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 or whatever trees, and grass. Let's just get rid of this white. And this is just a mix of this blue purple and this kind of grassy color, muted green, just to have So I would add a lot more to this, you know, some that time went fast. I was really afraid I was going to be done too soon, but here we are.
A little bit of implied detail.
Yeah, a little bit of shrubbery.
Can't say that without thinking of Monty Python.
Yeah, I know. And I do like to keep my foreground near the bottom quite dark and have my punch of light. If I can just quickly get it in there, in my land, I'd like to have my punch of light in the midground. I don't want it down here because then the viewer's eye runs off. So I would put it, you know, maybe somewhere in here. There'd be a punch of light. So, and yeah, I would play with this with my knife, create more trees, shrubs, maybe marry this with the hills a bit better. You know,
kind of doing the same thing as you did in the sky, but on the land in a different like value range.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I hope everybody gives it a shot, and just don't be afraid to use the paint and make those discoveries. You know, all of these demos and workshops, you take some and you lose some. You know, you just use those tips and techniques that you like and discard the others, and then suddenly you have your own style, your own method.
Totally. There was just before we finish up, the gang on the chat were wondering whether we could have another look at your palette.
Oh, it's a mess now, but yes.
I know, but that's half the fun, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's see how the palette has ended up. Okay, so you still got all of your so you got on your colors, you've got like a warm and a cool of most of the primaries. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I've got my alizarin.
Yeah.
And cad red light and cad yellow light, cad yellow medium.
Right.
Yeah, and then and I had cerulean on here. It's all gone now.
Yeah.
But I had my ultramarine blue and cerulean. So yeah, that's pretty accurate, warm and cool.
Great. And then can we have a look at the painting? Would you mind holding that up to the camera and just to get a little close up there? We see some of the juiciness, some of the edges. Oh yeah. Look at that. That's a 𝗖𝗶𝗁𝗀𝗏 painting. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Christine, for sharing all those tips and tricks. That was great to see, and I've learned so much today. And it seems like everyone on the chat has been getting tons out of it.
Yay! Good.
And so thank you again. And everyone who's watching, you're going to see so much more of Christine's work out there. It seems like you're all over the awards season, winning awards left, right, and center.
It's kind of wild. Yeah, the imposter syndrome is living strong over here.
Well, isn't that the way, isn't it? Like you paint for yourself and then you put it out into the world, and it's sometimes great to get the reaction that you get. So
that's right.
Congratulations on all your success.
Oh, thank you very much, Charlie.
And it's been fun hanging out with you in person. And stay online, and we'll keep chatting after we finish the wrap up here. But if you're online on Facebook and YouTube, you want to stick around because we got a message from Eric coming up. But I've just got a couple of announcements to make. Obviously, don't forget to go and follow Christine at @𝗖𝗶𝗁𝗀𝗏 on Instagram. Visit her website, 𝗖𝗶𝗁𝗀𝗏.com. If you're interested, as I said, in my work, go check my stuff out at 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏.com and at 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 on Instagram. And as I said at the beginning, I've got a new video out, which is mastering acrylic landscapes. If you want to check that out, please do. And I've got a couple of gifts for you. You're going to need to download the free video, 97 incredible art secrets. And if you want to do that, go to 97artsecrets.com/ASL. Next thing I'm going to tell you about is gouache live. And I don't know how many of you paint in gouache, but I love it as part of my mix of mediums that I get to use on a regular basis. Main tickets start at only $47. On August 23rd, 2025, there's going to be an incredible lineup of instructors teaching you about gouache painting. And you just look at some of the work up on that screen. It's incredible. And some wonderful people there, great teachers. Okay, so let's check in with Eric and see what he's up to and where he is. Where's Eric?
Where in the world am I? Well, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm in the Austin International Airport, and we are getting ready to board a flight to San Francisco and then catching a flight to Beijing. Today, as soon as we land in Beijing, we're going to 𝗏𝗏 Paper Factory, meeting with the CEO and getting a tour of the factory. Then we're moving on the rest of our agenda for 3 weeks and a few days. So it's going to be crazy. I'll be checking in. I want to tell you guys that Fall Color Week is coming up and there's only 2 days left to be able to guarantee a room. So if you want to go, this is your time. Go to fallcolorweek.com. See you.
There we go. 3 weeks away. I think I'm only covering this week. And so you're going to get another great guest host next week. So thanks again to everyone for tuning in today. It was a pleasure to see Christine paint. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You've got to get onto Art School Live, at Art School Live on YouTube and at Eric Rhodes on Instagram. And thank you from me. Thank you from Eric. And we'll see you tomorrow for another fun-filled hour of painting. Thanks, everyone.